Hello and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Photoshop by Eduonics. In this lecture we're going to be going over guides and grids, and right before you I have this excerpt from this URL right here from Adobe's help documents. So something to read while I'm doing this, something to reference, but definitely visit that article. And as you can see, I have two guides that are on the screen right now. Now the way you get guides up is Control R. First, let's go over why you would use guides. For anything like design or alignment, guides make everything really easily. They're non-printing lines which can be placed vertically or horizontally on your canvas. And most of the settings are up in here in View. And to actually edit the colors and everything, and I'm sure you're already familiar with this, and edit preferences, go down to Guides, and this pretty much tells you, it's self-explanatory as far as the color. You can already see the color and you might have caught a glimpse of the magenta. You can change the style to dots, subdivisions, and grid line every 10%, for example, for grid. And then we're not going to really get into, and you'll see the 10%, you'll see 10 or 9, I'm not sure, of them going across when I do the grid, and you'll see each one of them separated into 3 vertically and horizontally. So let's look at how to put guides on the screen. I'm going to go to New Guide, and I'm using Adobe Photoshop CC 2014, which has a lot of added guide and smart guide capabilities. Now I can put 100 pixels, I can put 100 inches, which would be way off the artboard, of course. One thing you can also do is put percentages, and this is a horizontal line. It's going to be from here about 10% in, which is what these are essentially too. So I'm going to hit 10% for that, and then New Guide once again, 90% for the New Guide. So we have guides, and that's a novel way of putting them in. And you can clear your guides obviously by hitting Clear Guides. You can also lock them so that when I mouse over I can't edit them or do anything, and it keeps everything a lot simpler. I'm going to unlock them for now, and you can tell when I mouse over I can move them around. Now this is the typical way, and I'm going to clear my guides real quick. The typical way of putting them on there is just kind of eyeballing it and where you want. So you drag from the ruler, and then when you release, that's where your guide is. But if I hold in Shift when I'm dragging from the ruler, it's constraining to the increments that I've selected. And just a little note about rulers, you can change this to whatever you want. If you pick pixels, it'll snap to whatever these little notches are, which is 10 pixel increments. And that's when you're holding in Shift. The little information box that pops up to the upper right of the cursor, right next to the cursor, you might not be able to see it, but that contains, that tells you where your guide is. If I let go of Shift, it's giving me all kinds of different pixels, so Shift's pretty useful. Another thing, I don't know what it's particularly for, but if you hold in Alt, it'll switch before you let go of the guide. So I'm going to lay this down at 100 pixels. I'm going to do another one 100 pixels from the edge. So I find the edge, my little cursor information box says X colon 2100 pixels, so I'm going to go to 2000. So those are nice and even. And now there's no way to save the guides, but with Photoshop 2014, CC 2014, the process is really easy to make them. But first, let's just take a look at why we would want to lock guides and why we might even want to hide them. So these are going to be two things you might want to learn the shortcuts for. Guides can get in the way, and there's oftentimes you'll want to see the document without anything like that. So just Control plus semicolon or Command semicolon on a Mac. We'll do that nicely. And as far as locking them, that's Alt Control semicolon. So it's just the alternate version, or on a Mac, Option Command semicolon. So I'm going to lay out a few more guides here, but I'm going to do it showing you a neat trick. So first I'm going to clear these, and I call it a trick, but it's really just a feature that's in the newest CC 2014. Once again, go to New Guide Layout under View, and as you can see, it's going to let you customize your guides. By choosing 5 guides, should I say. I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm actually getting 5 subdivisions. So it's really the number of columns. I'm creating 5 columns. And if I want to get rid of these double guides, I can make the gutter. I can just delete it. And that's a really fast way of putting out guides. As you can see, I can make the margin, which is really convenient. I can also set percentages for any of these things. So in the end, I can save this as a preset. So in that sense, you can create guides, but making them and all the tricks to making them isn't anything compared to what you can do with them. But I'm going to show you this last trick. If I draw a shape, vector shape, for example, and then let's have a raster shape. If I go to View, New Guides from Shape, first I'm going to clear the guides so you can tell what's happening. View New Guides from Shape is going to put them around. You can't tell, but this white here is right where the last pixel of this black is faded away, so that's where it's putting it. And another way you can see where it's going to put the guides, if you want, is by showing layer edges. They should correspond with when you have a selection and you go to New Guides from Shape under View. Going to clear those. So there you have it on how to make the guides. And let's take a look at Smart Guides real quick. But before that, let's take a look at Grid. Grid is pretty much like the like guides, but it does it all at once. And remember the 10 every 10% and the subdivisions. Well, I hardly ever use Grid, but I'll show you just the basics of it. You would go to Show, just like anything else, under View, Grid, or it's Control Command on a Mac plus the apostrophe. And because I used a percentage, it's making it even. If you just say I want one every 100 pixels or 110 pixels, it might get cut off around here. So without having to actually measure anything or think or do any math, I can just choose a percentage and know that if it all adds up to 100, like 10 or 5, or not something like 17 or something, because that would not add up to 100, but if it all adds up to 100, it'll be nice and flush. So Grid's just a way of having a bunch of guides at once, and you can snap to Grid and guides. But for right now, I'm just going to hide the grid And pretty much most of the stuff when I'm showing you, the best part about all this, which is smart guides, which are currently on, they're the pink, kind of purple, I think magenta color guides, and they only pop up when you need them. They're interactive, and with CC 2014 they can do a lot. With the previous versions of Photoshop, smart guides would just tell you when you, let's say, have something centered. There, I know to let go of it there. But in 2014, if I select this shape, for example, and let's make a few more of them. As you can see, as I'm dragging these out, holding in Shift, it's showing me all the alignments. And let go of Shift. I can align it with this one, for example. So pretty handy stuff. Now when I have this shape selected, another function of smart guides is if I were to highlight or mouse over this holding in Control or Command on a Mac, it's going to tell me the distance between them, and once again that's determined by the ruler. So always, change your ruler to what you want to see. Let's change it to inches. It'll tell me the inches and those little pink boxes, and it's really handy. So you select your shape, you mouse over the shape, you want to know how far away it is in relation, and there you have it by holding in Control. So that pretty much wraps it up, but I just want to go into the Snap To function a little bit and just kind of go over the rest of Show. So as far as Show, we have layer edges selected. That would be, it's pretty handy. It shows you where you want to click. It shows you the extent of that layer because every layer is a different size. I don't really use the grid that often, like I mentioned. Smart guides I usually want to have on, especially if I'm doing design. Target path is something that so as far as view, show, target path, it's just something I have on. It says it has something to do with the guides, and it's a new function. You might want to look a little bit more into that. And as far as all or none, obviously will show all or none. Show extras options will show what things are not popping up in the menu, and you can select them. So Snap To, finally, we can choose to snap to guides or grid, layers, slices, document bounds, and that will also determine not just where it snaps to, but kind of where the smart guides tend to measure from and align to. If I were to choose layers, I get it things right up close, they'll snap in. And it's not just with vector. You generally don't want to have all of these on at once. It's better to have one, maybe two on at the same time, and you just change it up. Aside from that, that's the gist of guides and grids, and use them for all sorts of things like alignment and stuff. Just one more little trick actually to show you. As far as smart guides, when you're dragging it, it's just like Illustrator, shows you what's aligned with. But if I go outside of the shape that I'm on, and I'm on this one, you can tell. If I go outside of it anywhere and hit Control, it'll tell me to that element how far everything is. If I go all the way to my document bounds, it'll tell me right here, as you can see. So it's not just other objects, it is pretty much anything. So really good and really handy for design and stuff. And just a quick note, while you can't save guides as such, I mean you kind of can using the save preset and new guide layout. What you can do is create an action, but that's a whole nother thing and it's pretty advanced, so that should tell you all you need to know about using guides and grids in Photoshop. Just keep in mind a lot of these options won't be available in versions earlier in 2014 CC, but for the most part the idea is the same. So thanks for watching.